Welcome to another episode of Business Growth on Purpose with host Jose Palomino. In today's episode, we are thrilled to welcome Ruth Klein, a seasoned expert who specializes in helping high achievers identify their unique differentiators to enhance their brand and profitability. Ruth shares her expertise on overcoming momentum barriers that high performers often face, from mental fatigue to the overwhelming sensation of burnout. She discusses how action and self-leadership can transform productivity and drive business success. Ruth also delves into the importance of visibility in today's market, emphasizing strategies like writing impactful books and engaging in joint ventures to break through the noise. Whether you're an entrepreneur, CEO, or aspiring thought leader, this episode is packed with practical wisdom and inspiration to help you achieve sustained business growth. We hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Now, on to the show.
Welcome, Ruth, to Business Growth on Purpose.
Thank you so much. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, Ruth, we're excited to have this conversation here. But so that our audience has a little bit of context, just give us a little soundbite as to what you primarily focus on and who you work with.
Sure. I work with high achievers, CEOs, and I help them identify their differentiator, their top three differentiators to help them really get clean on their brand. And then from there, I help them with their high marketing strategies to profitability. That's what basically at the end of the day is what I do.
Wow. So you help people focus on what it is that sets them apart in the world, and then how to get the word out that they are that person who has those valuable differentiators for people they serve.
To get them out into the world to their target market and what kind of a cousin market might also be interested in that. So
Sure.
we tend to forget that there are cousin markets, if you will, that would also be interested, but maybe we have to change the marketing messaging just slightly, but it would help them as well. And that's what helps them get to profitability.
I love the cousin market. That's good. It captures the whole picture there. It's familiar, but not quite,
Yeah.
close, but, it's so on. So that's great. Well, one thing, just thinking about these high performance individuals you're talking about, right? So these are people, we've all met them. Hopefully, maybe we're them too, right? We set our minds to things, we get going. And I'll speak for myself, and I'm not claiming to be this high performance person. That's for other people to say. But I do find at times I hit a kind of either a mental or a physical barrier, a little bit of fatigue. I guess the best way to say it is I lose momentum on some things. And I've had a long career, so you kind of go up and down a little bit. So is that something you see a lot of, or am I the only one that has that challenge?
You're the only one in the world that works that has that, Jose. Um, well, towards the end of last year, it really hit me hard because I was hearing this from so many high achievers, CEOs. They would start projects and stop, start and stop. And the list was just getting longer. And they were feeling overwhelmed, a lot of burnout as a result, because that's what happens when there's no momentum going on.
Okay.
And then I realized, wow, this is a real issue. And here's the deal: if you are feeling overwhelmed in any way, or if you feel that you're a failure in any way, it will literally stop you in your tracks. And now, what normally, let's say, would take you 30 minutes to do, will take you probably an hour and a half to do if you do it. If you do it. And the reason for that is because we start to have these thoughts and these beliefs, and they just go around and around and around. And we have to learn how to pull out of those so that we can see the reality of what's really happening, identify where the key indicators are that's not working, doesn't mean you're not working, and then help people move forward. Because here's the deal: if you don't have action, if you don't take any type of action, you have no momentum. When you don't have momentum, your productivity suffers. And when your productivity suffers, I don't care what industry you're in, your income shows. And so we want to backtrack and we want to identify what is causing that lack of momentum, what is causing that action to go boom, zoom, zoom. And that's where I come in and I help identify that. That's, as we were talking, that's kind of one of my genius zones. I've written a couple of books on time management, and there's no way I could do what I do if I didn't have a really good handle on it. And it's not something that I think I was simply born with it. My parents did not know the language when they came to this town, to the United States. I was basically a latchkey kid. I learned that if it was meant to be, it's up to me. And I learned how to stay on track, how to do my homework, how to get things done. I didn't have the opportunity to ask my parents. I could have stayed up till midnight for all my parents could care about, and they loved me, but they I don't know. And
Was it wasn't their tool set.
it wasn't their tool set. And I have to tell you, Jose, when I was little, I thought they don't love me. Everybody else has a bedtime. I don't. What goes through our minds, ma'am?
I
And
know,
so
it's funny.
out of necessity, I had to learn how to do what I call self-leadership.
Okay.
And that's what it comes down to.
Well, let me back up to just a step there because momentum, it's a powerful word. We know this with even large sales and marketing activities, big companies. You got to get the mo going, right? You have to have some sense where otherwise you're always climbing uphill. But talking now about an individual themselves, right? You talked about action. A lot of times, I think a person could be stalled, but it's not for lack of activity. I mean, they're burning the calories, but they're not losing the weight, right? So it's something's off there. So I'm just curious. I mean, I know if you're in your work, you run into somebody and you say, dude, you can't just work 3 days a week and expect to get 6 days of results. Maybe, right? But what about the person you run into that you see is sweating the details? They're working hard, but they still are stuck. What do you look for there?
So first of all, when someone is sweating the details, that tells me a lot. The first question I want to know is, why are they sweating? And why are they so focused on the details? Has something gone wrong before? Are
Hmm.
they afraid to move forward? Did they have a big, did they, was there a big mistake because they didn't do the details? Is it coming from fear? Is it coming from burnout? Is it coming from they don't know what the next right action is? Is it coming from because they haven't broken it down? Is it because they don't have clarity around what they're supposed to do? All of these pieces, Jose, have to be inquired to see where we go from there. It's like going to a cardiologist. I don't feel well. Okay, you tell the cardiologist, tell me what some of the symptoms are. And then you start telling them the symptoms, and then the cardiologist, because of experience and academics and all of that, and intuitive knows where to start, where to ask you. It's the same thing here. It's not a one fit for everybody. And so those are really important questions. And those are the questions that I just put out there. Those are the questions that your listeners viewers can ask themselves. Where is this stoppage happening? What is going on in the business? What is going on in my life? What is going on in my relationship here at work that this is happening? What am I fearful of? Is this a fear because of something that happened before? Or is this something that you don't really have clarity around? So you're starting it and stopping it and starting it and stopping it. Where can you get more clarity? Is this something where you're just exhausted? You're just tired. Is that what's going on? So it's those kinds of questions that I ask. And once I ask them, I know where to go from there.
Okay. So it could be so many different things, but sometimes
Right.
just having somebody like you asking the questions makes somebody reflect on things. Maybe they just need to slow down to take a look, because they're, when you're in that motion, and I've seen this a lot working mostly with business owners, is they're busy being busy, but not necessarily busy being smart.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
See,
I guess
and that's a really profound statement. We know it, but it's still profound. And it's profound because that's where accountability, that's where when someone comes in and starts to identify, are they just being busy to be busy? Or are they moving forward? Or are they moving forward so small and such small spurts that they're starting to feel burnt out, that
Mm,
they're not getting to the finish line? What is the finish line? What is That's what needs to happen. And so here's the finish line. What needs to happen going back? What do you need to do? Now, I will share with you that one of the areas that people get stuck, the majority of people get stuck, is in their thoughts.
mm.
They make a statement. I can't do this. I'm exhausted. I don't know what to do. I'm tired of moving forward. Nobody really cares. This is not going to come out well, and I'm going to get slammed. It's those kinds of thoughts that we say again and again and again, and we don't realize how that stops us in our tracks.
Well, so a lot has to, it's almost like physician, heal thyself. You got to start in that inner game, that inner head. So now when you have a very high performing person, and I'm not saying in every case, but usually there's to put it mildly, a healthy amount of ego in people like that, right? Of course, they're confident. That's and they've earned that right to be confident. They're good at what they do, and they've been good for a long time. How hard do you find, is it hard for people to have that kind of really candid moment where they say, the reality is I'm not sure I'm doing the right thing, or the reality is I feel like it's not, the results aren't what I expected, or I'm disappointed in myself. I'm just curious how you work with those kind of, like, I guess for lack of a better term, head trash issues.
So first of all, let me comment on something you said, that high achievers are really confident. That's not necessarily true. A lot of high achievers I have found overcompensate
Okay.
because they're not feeling confident. So they overachieve, and it's attached to their ego. I have to look good. They have to think I'm smart. They have to know that I'm in it in the long game. So that could be going on too. And those are issues, those are real issues that we have to address also. Um, and then your second inquiry is in terms of how do you talk to them when they are saying that stuff in their minds. First of all, I just talk to them and I ask them, where do you think the breakdown is? And I hear where the breakdown is. Well, you know what? John forgot to tell me that these last few pieces have to go into this. How am I supposed to do that? I hear what they say. I wish I could be more specific,
No, but
but
it's very helpful.
it's kind of like a science meets an art,
Sure.
because people will, if you ask the right questions, as Tony Robbins says, if you ask the right questions, you will start to hear what the issues are. And we all have blind spots. I don't care how wealthy you are. I don't care how successful you are. I don't care how wonderful you are. Being human equates to having blind spots. And so it's essential that you have a cohort or a coach or a consultant or a good friend who's honest with you and who will lovingly tell you that that's not accurate.
Mm.
That's not true. Rethink that. Let's go back to square one. What can you do about it? Because that's the other thing. High achievers, high achievers know they can't blame others, but yet they do because they don't mean to blame them, but they really think that that's what's happening. So we have to bring it back into our ballpark. Let's say that someone didn't give us the right information. Okay. Now we have a few choices here. We can even cry about it. We can stop what we're doing and blame and get really upset and go down the pike, or we can say, okay, that sucks. That stinks. Now, what am I going to do about it?
Hmm.
That's where the buck stops. That's what it takes to be very successful, is to know that the self leadership starts and stops with ourselves. And if something is out there in the environment and we can't do anything about it, which many times we can't, then what is it we can do? And this opens up a trove of treasure for every entrepreneur, CEO I've ever worked with. It is a treasure trove.
Okay, no, I love
Because
it. I love it. And I think there's and I've seen this especially when you get to like mid-sized companies in that 10 to $20 million range where they have leadership team, but you're still a small enough company that you're not necessarily hiring the top eagles in the industry. You self-develop, you build up your team. So I've seen owners get very frustrated by what people are not doing instead of seeing the opportunity to say, look, you're in a space where you have to constantly be developing those people. The fact that they don't know how to do something right is not their fault. You took somebody who was young and you built them up in the business. They learn, they're copying you. That's all they know. So like, look in the mirror. So very interesting there. Now, Ruth, I do want to shift a little bit here because I think one other thing that you help people do that I think is particularly interesting, and I'm sure it comes out in this conversation about momentum, which is people say, I want to grow and expand my footprint, my notoriety. I want to get known. Let's say somebody's an expert in something. And so one of the things might be, well, write a book or become a platform speaker or something like that. And I could easily see you hearing people say to you, that sounds like a good idea, but I don't have time for that. That's probably number one reason. It's like, it's a good idea in concept. I agree, but I don't have time for that. How do you address that issue or that objection, if we call it that, and then how do you actually help people with that time issue?
yeah, absolutely. You're right on. It's a time issue, and I don't know how to start. I don't know how to do it. So there are two ways that I go. First of all, let me back up and talk about visibility for a moment. Number one, it's a visibility game. Social media, it's all about visibility. And how do you break through? First of all, how do you break through the noise? And one of the first things is to identify your differentiators. How are you different? And I like to find three of them, not one, three of them, and
Okay.
start creating the messaging and the marketing around those three. That's number one. Number two, people want to hear you. They want to hear you speak. They want to hear your ideas. Are they novel? Or do you have ideas but you think differently on a topic? Or do you have a mission? The other way to go about with visibility is to also do a lot of joint ventures. What is a sister company or industry that you could become visible in and would help that visibility piece? So that let's just start there. So then writing a book is one of the best ways to get your name and your ideas out there. But it's not a book that's written in a weekend. Sorry. We're talking about a good quality
Real,
book.
a good book.
We're talking about a good book. And we're not talking about a book that's 50 pages either. Those could be a lot wonderful. They could be great information, but I call them guidebooks
Sure.
or workbooks. There's a need for those too. And so, because I've written 7 books so far, I'm working on my 8th, and I help people write books, I can help the busiest person write a book in 5 months.
Okay.
If they don't want to do that, then I will ghostwrite their book. Because being someone in branding and marketing and knowing the PR piece, which I used to do, and being an author, a best-selling author, where I've had traditional publishers purchase my work, my books, I can ghostwrite and have a book for them within 4, 5 months, if
Yeah.
not sooner.
What I love about that though, Ruth, is that it's a realistic time frame that if somebody, I could just intuitively, I could say, okay, my book took me about a year. I didn't have somebody like you helping. And, it just like the 80-20, the first 80% of it comes together pretty quickly. At least it did for me. And then, but grinding out the details to get it right, to polish it, to make it something you feel good about, just took longer. So I definitely think that time frame seems realistic for somebody, especially the type of person that we're describing here, somebody that maybe has something to say. And I love the fact that you start off with those 3 things that really are worth saying. Like focus on that, and that gives you a platform. It's something to talk about. Then finding the words to describe it become not easy. I'm sure it's not trivial, but become doable. So it's an
It's
exciting
right.
journey.
Right. And I urge my clients, I want this to be an enjoyable experience.
Okay.
And it can be. I want it to be an enjoyable experience. And what's so wonderful about having a book coach, and I'm also a developmental editor, is that when someone's talking, I'll go, oh, let's put that in. Or
Okay.
wait a minute, that goes into the speech. So when I work with someone and helping them write a book, or when I ghostwrite, I help them with what's called their signature speech. They get
Gotcha.
2 for 1 because it's right there. I'm a speaker. I know what to look for. I hear the hot buttons. I hear the oh my buttons. And then we craft their signature speech, and so they have both of those right off the bat, which is very, very important and very lucrative for them. I also help them find a hybrid publisher. And I also, if they want to get a traditional publisher, I'm friends with a lot of agents, and I can help them write their book proposal. Because if you want a traditional publisher, which I've had 6 of them so far, you have to write a winning book proposal, because you're basically asking the traditional publisher, will you loan me $25,000 to write this book, please? Because that's basically what it costs the
Right.
publisher. And they'll say, how do I know I'm going to get my money back? And usually people go, well, it's a really good book and people think it's really good. Nah. So you have to have, it's basic. And here's the deal. Sometimes I'll even help someone write a little mini book proposal, because it ends up being an excellent marketing strategy for the person, because there's a PR piece, there's a marketing piece. It's phenomenal. There's a descriptive piece, there's a summary piece, there's a paragraph for each chapter, the bullets. And so we do a little mini version of that before we start the book. And then once we start the book, it's so much easier for my
Wow.
clients.
Well, again, it's a process, right? You're working the
Process.
process, and Ruth, you are a process person. I love it. Well, look, this
Yeah.
has been fantastic. We're just at time right now. So let me ask you, for our listeners, if somebody wanted to know more about you or to contact you, where should they go to find you and to make that connection?
Yeah. If you want to chat with me, it's www chat with Ruth. And you can also go to ruthklein.com. Klein is Klein. And there's a place there that you can hook up with me as well. Love to chat with you.
Fantastic. Ruth Klein, thank you so much for stopping by Business Growth on Purpose. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Jose. It's always fun.
Fantastic.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Business Growth on Purpose. If you like the show, hit subscribe and leave us a review to help other people find the podcast. And if you're ready to take the next step in driving intentional growth for your business, come check out what we're doing at valueprop.com. We've developed industry-leading programs and systems to help B2B owners take control of their growth. Until then, thanks for listening to another episode of Business Growth on Purpose.